Well, hello there. My name's Poppa John, and it's been about 2.5 years since I've recorded a YouTube video, but, most of y'all viewed me for the first time, so why would you care about that? I'm Poppa John. I'm here to talk about this movie, which I love, other people hate, and that's something I like to talk about. I love to talk about movies that I love and other people hate. So today, I will now be defending Joker, Folie, Deux. So it goes without saying, this is nowhere near as good as the first movie. The first movie, top tier, almost like probably Mount Rushmore of DC movies. This, it's not in the top tier, but it's still great. It's in like that second tier, And that means it's not perfect. So I'll highlight some of my major, not so much major, but minor issues, more nitpicks than issues. I'd say the only major issue I have with this film is the weird baby plotline, which makes no sense. No reason to be there. But a couple other nitpicks. The musical stuff, I think they go a little overboard with sometimes. Like there's one musical segment within that comes out of the courtrooms that really doesn't need to be there. I do like the artistic vision of the musical stuff, and I do think like the breakout musical song kind of adds to sort of the situation that's going on in that scene and adds to the development between Harley and Arthur. So I do think there are character development, even if not necessarily story development within those musical sequences. They're not catchy, but this isn't Grease, this isn't Hairspray. It's not trying to be this catchy musical. It's just using musical to enhance sort of character development as well as let the audience see the inner workings of Arthur's psychology and his brain. But like I said, they do go a little overboard at times. And the other thing, something that's just a real small nitpick, is the sex scene in solitary confinement. They awkwardly just linger on it for way too long. First, it just leads to the baby plot line that I mentioned earlier is really my only major issue. And so this scene doesn't really need to be there because that plot line doesn't need to be there. But it also just lingers on it way too long. It's very awkward. So here's why I fucking love this fucking movie. So first, I'm going to say a sentence here that's going to sound a little contradictory, but hear me out. Arthur was the Joker, but the Joker was never Arthur. So first of all, the Joker is sort of one of two things within that. Both things are alluded to in the comics, to be fair. And that is the Joker is an idea, and in a weird way, the Joker is an illness. The illness and disease thing I'll get to a little later on, but right now I want to focus on Joker is an idea. He's not one person. There's a reason why there's never really a clear, definitive, secret identity for the Joker. It's because he's more of an idea. He's an agent of chaos. He's not a singular person with a singular secret identity. And that's what these movies allude to. And that's partly why I love them, is because that's what the Joker is to me. So now, getting on to this, at the beginning of the film, you have this animated opening sequence where you have the shadow of the Joker battling the Joker for the spotlight. And that right there reflects Arthur Fleck's battle throughout the film. He's in the Joker's shadow, because in the first film, he was forced to embody the idea of the Joker. He was forced to become a Joker. Not necessarily the Joker, but a Joker. And in that, he started a movement, but that was never his goal. He just wanted to be noticed. He wanted to be accepted. And in like that final sequence in the first film, when he's on top of the car and he has all these supporters around him, in his mind, that's people noticing him, people accepting him. But one thing you see throughout this film is him as a character developing and noticing things that he otherwise would not notice. And that being, they're not accepting him, they're accepting the Joker. And so he's battling between these identities. And on top of that, he's got lawyers telling him, no, this is who you are. You are this multiple personality person. This is who you are. And on the other side, the prosecution lawyers are saying, no, he's none of that. He's just faking it. This is who he is. He's a despicable man that deserves the death penalty. And then you have Harley saying, no, don't believe either of them. You're this person. you got this battle of identities, and in all of it, Arthur just wants to be accepted. He wants to be noticed by society. And society keeps failing him. And society keeps telling him he has to be someone that he's not. And so throughout the film, you see that Harley Quinn is in love with him. He finally finds someone that is accepting of him and truly loves him. He accepts the identity that she gives him at first. So he does accept being sort of the Joker that this Lady Gaga's Harley tells him he is. You get to where he becomes his own counsel. He fires his lawyers, and he kind of puts on a show in the courtroom. And then you get to like the Puddles testimony scene, and he's talking to Puddles. And he realizes that Puddles in the first movie was the only person, he even says it in that scene, Puddles was the only person that accepted Arthur for Arthur. He never made fun of Arthur. Puddles even said that Arthur never made fun of him. They both just accepted each other, even though they have like these physical and mental faults. But then Puddles doesn't accept him anymore because of who he's become. And Arthur realizes that the one person, the only person that ever truly accepted him, the person he let live because of that, the person he didn't kill because they accepted Arthur, is now no longer accepting of this new identity. He's now afraid of Arthur. He's afraid of the Joker. Arthur comes to this realization, and that's when you get to the closing statements. Now, I will admit, when these closing statements first happened, I turned against this movie because I thought this was a way that was weirdly just killing off the Joker. He basically said, no, I am sane, and all of that. And I started to turn on the movie. I really did. In the back of my head, I was like, okay, he's got to be manipulating the jury. And the later scenes play out, and you realize that's not exactly what was happening. And it wasn't a whole Joker manipulating people like you see in like The Dark Knight Returns, when he manipulates people into believing he's cured, and then he gasses a talk show. You don't get that. The thing that turned this movie around for me was the final scene and the final shot, which I think a lot of people hate. I actually think it's a brilliant idea and kind of encompasses what the Joker really is. And this is where I'm going to bring up the idea of the Joker as sort of a disease and illness. So it's basically this metaphorical, you could argue it's a metaphorical disease that you catch by killing the person who has it. And so that's when you see at the end, the new Joker or whatever stabs Arthur, and Arthur's dying, and it like zooms in on his face. It focuses on Arthur, but you can hear in the background the Joker laugh. You can see him carving his face, which initially I did not. I noticed this, but my initial thought for some reason was that he was licking the blood off of the blade, not carving his face. Carving his face makes more sense, but I guess my brain went to licking the blood. But nonetheless, regardless of what he was doing, it still gets the point across. And that's sort of why I love this film, is yes, the Joker had left Arthur when he was giving those closing statements, but the Joker never died in this movie. The Joker still lives on. This is still part of the Joker origin story. Because the Joker is not a singular person with a singular secret identity. He's an idea. I do think this film gives a comic book accurate characterization of the Joker, even if the Joker himself is not necessarily a comic accurate in terms of like heists and bombs and prison breaks. Sorry, I hit my mic. And prison breaks and all of that. Like, you don't get that necessarily, and that's where I think the mainstream audience really doesn't like this. And that's not a dig at anybody. Everybody has their own opinions. Art is subjective. I'm not going to blame anybody for hating this movie. I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. We all have different opinions. I can see why people think Todd Phillips is trolling people by making a movie that the target audience didn't want. I disagree, personally. I think Todd Phillips' target audience got what they wanted. I just don't think Todd Phillips' target audience is the mainstream audience that originally loved the original Joker. But I do think his personal target audience, the audience that he was targeting, does love both of them as companion pieces. Now, like I said, this is not a perfect film. I still have my nitpicky ideas with with the baby storyline in particular, and some, sex scene, and just musical stuff being overdone, even though they're done well. I do think they get overdone. And so I don't think it's a perfect film. I don't think it's as good as the first film. I think the first film is sort of like a 5-star CM Punk, Drew McIntyre in Hell, just a 5-star classic. But I think this film is more of a divisive, Hangman versus Swerve, Steel Cage. It's more divisive, but it's still great nonetheless. And so I would still give it like a 4.5 slices. So if you like this video, obviously hit the like. If you dislike this video, hit that dislike, hit that thumbs down. I don't care, and tell me in the comments section down below why I am wrong, you are right. Art is subjective. We can both be wrong. We can both be right. So just tell me in the comments sections down below how wrong I am. Hit the subscribe button if you want to hear more unpopular opinions, because I actually have a couple other movies and videos to make where I'm going to talk about movies that I love that other people hate. And honestly, a couple of them are comic book movies. So if you like comic book movies, that is probably going to be the majority of the movies I talk about. So I'll also have some horror in there. I might even throw in some wrestling. So hit the subscribe button if you want. And keep it hot, like Papa John.